Hey, DGB sisters, welcome to another show. And today I have Angie Bird with me. Hi, Angie. It's so nice to see
Hi.
you. Now, Angie has been on the DGB show before, and I've asked her to come back for a second round because we just love the conversation. And Angie, since she's been through the Divorcing Gracefully and Beyond program, and she is a shining graduate of the Divorcing Gracefully and Beyond program. And the reason why I asked Angie to join us on their conversation is because there are so many of us both going through the program, graduates of the program, and maybe you're listening to this and you've never heard of Divorcing Gracefully and Beyond. So my name is Dona. I'm a licensed clinical social worker as well as a rapid transformational relationship coach. And what we do at Divorcing Gracefully and Beyond is we help to heal your soul fracture from divorce. We help to take those beliefs, those patterns, the behaviors that no longer serve us. We help to eradicate them. And then we really look at falling in love with ourselves first. And then when we're ready, bringing in a partner. So the way that I like to kind of explain Divorcing Gracefully and Beyond is you're a smart, intelligent woman. You've got most of your life together. It's just that you're on one side of the bridge and you know there's another side. You just don't know how to get across. Well, we help you to get on the other side. So, Angie, I would love for you to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about who you are because we've got some good stuff to share. And Angie's been cooking up some good stuff in her life that I can't wait to have a conversation about.
Yeah, so I'm Angie, and it's so funny. I'm remembering our last conversation where I was like, "Oh, I check all the boxes. I'm a mom. I have a job. I have a dog."
Yes. Yes. I got this check, mom. Yep. Job check.
Yeah,
One
and
1.4 children check. House check.
I know, and it's funny. So I'm gonna describe myself as an explorer of life.
I love it.
And I have this phrase that I call Angie's anthem. And
This is new,
there's
Angie. I didn't hear this, but I'm loving it. Angie's anthem. What is
Yes.
it?
Angie's anthem is how to create and live the life that I want
Mm.
and to not hold myself back from anything and to really look at like what do I want my life to be? Like my life is my choice, my design, and I get to create that, and it's this continual process of refining it. It's not like you reach a point and you're like, "Okay, here I want these 10 things in my life."
Right. And okay, we're done. Like, yeah, okay, we're done. I kind of equate it to the gym, right? You could go to the gym and you could build up a certain level of fitness, but if you stop going, that muscle will turn too fat. Right. It's going to, you have to keep it going. It becomes easier, right? Your routine becomes easier and you don't have to put as much work into it, but there's still effort, right? You still have to be
Yeah.
focused on it.
Yeah, it's so funny.
Yep.
So I have been divorced almost 2 years. I'm coming up to the 2 year mark since I got divorced, and actually, we're coming up on the 2 year mark since I met you.
I know. And can I just tell you, Angie? Okay, go ahead. I'll tell you after, but go ahead. Finish what you were going to
Well,
say.
so I was looking back at things that I wrote around that time about what I wanted in my life when I
Yep.
was going through the divorce, like things that were really important to me to establish and everything. And I was actually reading back through that list 2
Yep.
years later, and I realized that almost every item on that list that I've done, and I looked at it and I was like, "Whoa." And
Pretty
I had
cool
this
shit.
thought, I was
Yes.
like, "I get to reimagine my life again," right? Like, I mean, those things have happened, and now I get to kinda look at it from this place that I'm in 2 years later, like,
Yep.
"Okay, what's next for me?" So that's been really fun.
Oh, and Angie, as you said that, I just wanted to pop in there because again, you and I go back for that 2 year mark, and I remember very specifically our call. Right, it was one of those calls that just indelibly will be in my mind, in my heart, in my soul because it was that powerful, it was that emotional, it was that impactful. The one thing, as uncertain as you may have been of okay, what is this coaching thing? Is this going to work for me? Is this going to be the place for me? The one thing that you had committed is you were not going to move through this divorce or your divorce and you were not going to allow the divorce to ruin your life, right? End your children's life. You weren't sure, but you were committed to saying, you know what, I'm not where I want to be, right? It's and but this is my reality, this is where I am, but what I do have power over, because I don't have power over the past, what I have power over is the future and what do I want. right? And then when you began to work with DGB, you know, and in combination with multiple things that you were doing in your life, right? Like I would love to say DGB was the magic wand and the ticket. It's I would say it's a catalyst and it's a huge part of where you are today, right? But there's other things that you were putting into place is, and this is why I'm so glad that you're on the show, is because so many women will try to go it alone in this journey, and what ends up happening is they're 2 to 3 to 4 to 5 years as the divorce is happening, or even post divorce, is suffering,
Mhm.
is suffering, and we will never get those years back, right?
You
Never,
know,
ever.
yeah, you know what I think so great about this conversation too is I feel like that there is a lot of tendency to not talk about real things in our lives,
Yes.
especially when you get in these interactions in your life where it's like you're going to work and you're doing your routine with your family,
Yep.
and a lot of times we have trouble connecting, and especially if you're going through something very difficult and you don't feel good and you don't feel like reaching out to your
Yep.
friends and all of that kind of thing, and then you become isolated. And I think it's so important to find people that you can talk about. So that's actually one of the reasons that I'm okay with going live, is because I think that we need to be real with each other and say,
Yes.
there are some really hard things in life. And who do you talk to about those?
Right, and I think it's a matter of, there was something that was, it was interesting, as I said, "Oh, I have to talk about this today with Angie." There was a conversation that I was listening to this morning of saying other people are going to have feelings and thoughts and beliefs about who you are, but you don't have to believe them. Create the ones you want to be and believe those.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you put 10 people in front of you, 10 people are going to have a different opinion of who you are and what they like or don't like about you. And there is a rule in this world. The rule is you are going to have people in this world that will love you, right? And there's nothing you could do wrong. Even if you did something wrong, they're going to love you anyway. They're just going to be like, "Oh, like she, whatever, blah, blah, blah." But they're going to love you, love you, love you. And then you're going to have people in this world that will love you and care for you, but, listen, if you're not in the room that day, they're not losing sleep over it, right? They're living their life, you're living yours, but they truly care about you. And then you are going to have people in this life that, for whatever reason, aren't going to align with you. It has nothing to do with us or you, the person in general. It really has to do with that other person. Maybe
Mm-hmm.
you remind them of a teacher in school who wasn't very kind to them, right? Maybe, just maybe, you remind them of a sibling who used to berate them when you were little. Maybe your voice is irritating to them because of whatever reason. Again, it doesn't matter. It has nothing to do with us. It has to 100% do with the other person. But what ends up happening is, let's say there's 2 out of those 10 that the people who say they have their own belief systems about who we are that aren't kind. Many women will go after those 2 and try to spend all of their time and the energy trying to figure it out, trying to win them over, and they forget about the 80%, right? And I think this is what happens in divorce too. In our own life, is we spend so much time trying to get an understanding, trying to get closure, trying to like you said, like, we isolate ourselves, we're trying to figure it out, and then we're trying to go and have a conversation with friends, and you could go to 5 friends, and each of those 5 friends could have a different guide for you, and now all of a sudden you're like, I don't even know where to turn.
Oh, this has been such a huge thing for me, learning how to validate myself, right? That's been one of my huge learning
Yes.
curves, and learning how to do that. And I remember a moment actually where a friend of mine was very opinionated and very harsh about some things that were happening, right? And I remember she was going on and on and on and on and on and saying it, and I was listening, and some of it applied and some of it didn't apply. It was her understanding of the situation,
Yes,
but
and I
I
like
did
how you said that. It
appreciate.
was her understanding of the situation. Wasn't a
Right,
fact, it was her
right.
understanding of it. Yes.
Yeah, and I did appreciate her perspective and her sharing her feelings and the
Mhm.
intensity of it, and it was all good from my perspective. I had that kind of separation of me and her. And then when she was done, I expressed to her, like, thank you for sharing your feelings with me, and just an appreciation of that. But I didn't take her opinion as what my action should be, right? And she actually came back to me a couple months after that conversation, and she goes, I just realized that I had this judgment about what you should be doing. And you looked at me and you said, Well, thank you for sharing that.
I love it. I love it, and you know what it brings me back to Don Miguel Ruiz's "Be impeccable to your word," right? And seeing you, Angie, when, you know, your journey when I first met you to where you are now, you have grown into this woman, right, who is impeccable to her word, who is honest and loyal to herself, who is has built a level of strength and confidence and boundaries that are healthy and loving, right, and with your children. And so let's talk about that for a little bit, because I think this is important for everybody to understand. No matter where you are in your journey, and no matter how stuck you think you are 100%. I will honor that stuckness. You deserve to feel the stuckness, but I want to really reiterate to you, or strongly connect with you to say that is a feeling, it is not a fact, right? We feel stuck, but is that the truth? Right? Because I like to say action reduces anxiety. So when you started DGB, you took action. You're like, okay, I'm going to learn. I'm going to learn the tools I need to learn. Now, fast forward 2 years, you have written a book, which I can't wait to put in the chat. I'm going to put it in the chat. So after this video, if you want to purchase Angie's book, and Angie, you have to tell us what's the name of the book? Glitter Bird, right?
Glitterbird discovers every bird is beautiful, and it's a children's book.
I love it. And I've read it. I have a copy of it. And matter of fact, on the retreat, Andy, who is an admin here at DGB, we gave her that. You signed it for her and gave it to her as her shower gift. So pick up a copy of that book, because it's fabulous. It's a wonderful thing to give to a young mind. But I have to say, it also inspired my mind too. Even though it was written for a child, there was concepts in there that I really enjoyed. But going back to where you first were, you were in a point you didn't know where your tomorrows were going to be. There was a great, what I would call a great sadness happening, because you're going through a time in your life that we don't plan for. We didn't
Mhm.
know what was going to happen. And I'm just going to tell everybody where Angie is today. So where Angie is today is she's excelling in her career, right? Her goal, and I won't, you could share what's going on in your career, but she's excelling in her career, loving her work. She has written a book. She is in a relationship. We'll see. Like, again, we here at DGB, we like to say, we don't kind of go into he's the one, he's not the one. We go into this is an opportunity to explore and have fun. And that's what she's doing. You have a wonderful relationship with your children. You've also rescued a puppy. Your house is growing, who's not a puppy, who's big like Casey.
And a kitten, and a
Oh, I
kitten.
didn't know you did a kid too. So tell us about, because guys, if you think we can't get change fast, I just want you to know it is not true. Do not believe that it has to take 10 years or 30 years, or you've got to go through all this struggle and all this pain before you could have peace and happiness. Because here's the real truth. The real truth, you can has joy in spite of the pain, even though we're going through circumstances that are not our desired circumstances. It doesn't mean we still cannot have a joyful and happy life. And it doesn't mean we can't be enjoying it as we go along. So Angie, why don't you tell me a little bit about your journey of where you've come from to where you are now? Because I know this is going to inspire so many people.
Yeah, it's funny when you say all of that stuff. Like the volume of stuff that's really amazing in my life right now is really amazing. And I
Yeah.
look at it on that and I'm like, whoa.
Yes.
But I think it's important to back up
Yep.
because if you would have told me I would feel like this 2 years ago, I would have said no, like no
Mhm.
way. So like, I mean, I went through a period in my life where I was suicidal.
Yeah.
I mean, it was very upsetting. And I looked at things like when I started Angie's Anthem, I actually remember I took a piece of paper and a pen and I said, I saw something that was like, incorporate something into your day that brings you joy,
Yeah.
right? Like, does it bring you joy to sit outside and have your coffee? That was just like a little thing,
Just a
right?
simple
And
thing, but how beautiful is that?
I remember sitting there
Yeah.
with my piece of paper and my pen, and I couldn't actually think of anything. Like
Mm.
I couldn't create a list of something that would bring me joy that day, right? It felt impossible.
Do you
And
remember when that was, Angie? When was that point when you felt that feeling?
That happened kind of during, the year leading up to my divorce and around the time that I was going through the
Right.
divorce. So when you're in like the most intense
That's
moment
the
of
most
it.
intense. And what's happening, and just you know this now, but I'm just going to share this with other women who are listening to this. What Angie experienced is not abnormal. It's actually 100% normal, meaning Angie was responding normally to a situation that we would consider abnormal in the sense that we don't wake up to be divorced, right? We wake
Mhm.
up to be married. So, what happened to Angie's brain is she went into a fight or flight mode. And when we're in fight or flight, what happens is our brain constricts, and our brain is it's not the time to paint the house, right? You can't paint the house while the porch is on fire.
Mhm.
So what your brain does is it just goes into survival. It looks at what could go wrong. It looks at what's not working. It looks at what's the next threat because it's on hyper alert, because it doesn't know you have a home, doesn't know you have a job, it doesn't know you have food on the table, but it's on hyper alert for your well-being. And so what happens is a lot of women will say, I just can't see, I can't figure it out, I don't understand why I'm so stuck. And it's because your brain isn't operating in that fight or flight. And that's one of the first things that we need to do is get out of the fight or flight and into the parasympathetic mode so our brain can become open.
Yeah, and I
Right?
think it's important to say that it's okay to feel grief and it's okay to
A
feel
hundred
sadness and
percent. A
anger
hundred.
and
Yes.
rage and all of these things.
Yes.
Like,
Matter
you
of
have
fact, can
to
I
be
add to
there.
that? Can I add to that? Because
Yeah.
I love that you just said that. And the permission slip, because in DGB, the first thing we get is a
Oh, yes,
permission
I
slip, right?
remember the permission
Yes,
slip.
the permission slip. And so the permission slip is actually to feel it, because as a human being, we are designed to move towards pleasure and move away from pain. So what happens is we do something as humans. I'm not saying everybody, and there's different varying degrees, right, for different people, but we do something that may be considered a softening technique. It's not that bad, right? Or I'm not going to look at this today. Or we don't give ourselves the feeling to feel grief because we've got to keep everything going. We don't have time to grieve. We've got to keep the family together. We've got to manage the children and make sure that they're managed, right? We've got to show up to work and we've got to perform. So what we do as women is we will soften and pretend it's not so bad, or we'll avoid it and we'll try not to, address it. But it's almost like what you're doing temporarily is we can manage it, but over time it becomes too much, and that's where we break down. Right? It's almost like you're sweeping garbage underneath the rug. Like the first time you sweep a little garbage, listen, it's fine. But after a while, you're going to have a big heap in there that is going to smell pretty bad. Like you're going to have to pay attention to it. And what happens with most women is it shows up physically. It will show up in an anxiety attack. It will show up in
Mhm.
depression. It will show up in GERD. It will show up in not being able to sleep. It will show up in overusing or underusing, meaning oversleeping or undersleeping, overeating, undereating. It shows up in all these toxic behaviors. So what Angie said is so spot on, is really the obstacle is the way through. So when we could address the obstacle, when we could just feel it, we actually can move through it and it dissolves.
Yeah, I think, I definitely had a whole bunch of health issues that were going on during that
Yeah.
period of time that are getting better.
Yes.
So it's
And no
definitely comes out in
coincidence
your
they're getting
physical.
better.
Yeah,
Right.
physical body. And, I think a good symbol that I had in my mind when you're describing all of this is that I think one day or at a part of this process, I just put my foot down, right? It was like, I don't I don't want to feel this bad. I don't want to feel this
Yeah.
miserable. Like, how do I do that? And I would say that description of feeling stuck, I
Yeah.
remember saying in therapy to my therapist, I feel stuck, and he said, I hear this a lot. It's like the phrase or
It's
whatever.
such a
And
like,
what does that mean to you, right? And
yeah.
I remember I felt like I didn't have choices.
Mhm.
And I really did feel that way. And it's amazing to me what's happened when if you visualize putting your foot down and saying, that's enough, I'm not going to feel this way anymore. I don't know how to stop feeling that way and I don't know how to fix it, but like,
Yep.
I'm going to start trying to figure that out. And that process of trying to figure it out and understanding myself. And, it's really
Yep.
important to me to understand like what was my role in the relationship, right?
Mhm.
Like what got me into that place? What were the
Yep.
things about my relationship that I liked? What were the things that I didn't like? What
Yep.
works for me? What doesn't work for me? And that's
Mhm.
all a part of learning who I am.
Yep.
And I think it's so important when we're talking about getting into another relationship. I had this thing in my life in my mind. It was like, okay, well, if I do this things that I've always been doing,
Yep.
I'm going to have the kinds of relationships that I've been having, right? I
Mhm.
mean, so if you keep doing your life the way that you're doing your life, if you're in a relationship and something's happening, you're part of that equation.
1,000%, and that's why people, it's again, we don't know. Everybody is doing the best we can with what we have, truly. And the
Mhm.
outside world, the way the therapeutic world runs, the way that the regular outside world runs is, let's fix the outside in a sense. Like, what can we do? But it's in this area of our life, right? In this area, when it comes to healing our hearts post divorce and creating our amazing lives and attracting our ideal partner, it's exactly as you said. It's being able to look at ourselves objectively, no shame, no blame, no condemnation, but what I would consider to be objective responsibility. That, what was my role? Exactly as you said. And then let's actually move through this, and let's dissect this, and let's learn from it. What pieces do I like? What pieces served me? What pieces didn't serve me? But it's the inside, right? It's the patterns, the beliefs, the behaviors that we have embedded in our subconscious that is going to be the blueprint of what we see on the outside. So the first thing is changing what's in here.
Yeah, and it's hard to see yourself, I mean, it's much easier
Yep.
to have excuses or blame or whatever for
Yeah,
things
because
that
it's
happen to you,
comfortable. Right.
right?
It's
Right.
very comfortable because we've learned that. Think about what society praises in general, right? And I'm not saying anything bad or good about society in a sense. I'm just saying in general, the way misery loves company, right? And so every time you turn on the news, every time you turn on the radio, they're not celebrating overcomers or achievers. What they're celebrating and what they're talking about is, it's whose story is worse, right? So let's talk about and let's commiserate. And then what ends up happening is people get used to the conversations of talking about what they don't like, right? What's wrong with life? What's not working for me? What I don't
Mhm.
like. Now, again, it's not right or wrong, bad or good. It just is. This is how we've been conditioned as a society. But like you said, at some point we have to put our foot down. And I shouldn't even say have to. We get to put our foot down and say, wait a minute. Does the conversation have to be about what I don't want? Or can it be about what I do want? Because
Yes,
what we think about is what we bring about.
it's very empowering to realize
Yes.
that you have a lot of choices. You
And
have
and then
so
that's
many
the real
choices.
fact. So let's go back to what you said in your therapist, right? I feel I have no choices. It's
Mhm.
valid, right? But the fact is we have so many choices,
Yes,
right?
yes.
The fact is that now is our opportunity to say we are just not going to blindly surrender to the way things have always been done.
Yes, and you saying like, then in the moment where I said, "I have no choice," that was my choice.
That was your this is it. Exactly. It is it. I know this is so this is weird. But it's you'll hear what I'm going to say, and then it will make sense. So I also have a saying: the prisoners don't get to choose the curfew,
Okay.
right? So in our mind, we sometimes become the prisoner of what our thoughts are, right? Now, I don't know if you know, but I just rescued another puppy, Mabel.
Yes,
Mabel
yes, so
Rose.
cute.
She's adorable. So I have an 80-pound dog and a 10-pound dog. Very
Uh-huh.
big. We have now I just need a middle one, right? Big, middle, small. But anyway, I forgot what puppy training was like. Okay.
It's
So
intense.
I have to say she's a great puppy. She honestly is really beautiful, like amazingly smart, gorgeous, very, very good puppy, but she's still a puppy, right? So now my whole house has been turned around. I'm waking up at all times of the night, and I
Mhm.
have a crate for her, but then I have this pen for her, and then eating times and walking. I'm taking her out to the bathroom. She doesn't want to go to the bathroom. I bring her inside. What happens? She pees as soon as I get her inside. So
Mhm.
yesterday we have a local person who we use to train our dogs. His name is Bobby. He's the pooch professor, he says.
I like that.
So right? So he comes over and he's like, "Whoa, whoa, whoa." He goes, "Who's ruling this house?" And I'm like, "Bobby, you're 1,000% right. Mabel Rose has been ruling this house. He's like, here's what we're going to do. Here's when she gets up. Here's when she goes in the crate. Here's when she gets fed. Here's how you walk her. Here's how you hold her. Here's what you, and he put it everything back. Today has been a brilliantly beautiful day. She slept the whole night in her crate. I didn't wake up at 12 o'clock and 3 o'clock because I was afraid she was going to pee in her crate. Like I put her in. I did everything I was supposed to do, put her in. She slept through the night. I woke up. I took her right out of the crate. We had a nice breakfast, a nice morning walk, and I'm able to do my work. I came in the office without having to worry. And so I think it's so similar to this, is that our emotions and our thoughts and our situation can absolutely rule the roost and have us in a state of suffering and have us in a state of feeling, my gosh, I don't know what else to do. I've been doing everything I can, right? And have us having the feeling there's no other choice.
Mhm.
Again,
Yeah, for
valid,
sure.
valid.
Yeah,
But yeah, go ahead.
you know, there's been so many lessons in this, and I'm actually honestly grateful. And I remember I shared this with you before, but I never would have thought that I would have said that I was grateful I got divorced. But
Yep.
you know, and not in the way that that comes across, but what I'm grateful for is I'm grateful for what I've learned through this process about myself and who I've
Yes.
become and the way that I view life and the way that I'm
Yes.
approaching life. And I do not want to change my perspective on that at all. I mean, I've
Yep.
learned some truly amazing things that I think had to happen in the form of an explosion to get my attention.
1000%.
Um,
Hello, welcome to the club. That's what happened to me, and that's the same thing. I am so
yeah,
grateful for my divorce, and it's not to say that I didn't care for my ex-husband. It's not to say that I wish that wouldn't have gone a different way if it could have been saved, right? But for whatever reason, it wasn't meant to.
right.
And the woman who I've become, the way I'm experiencing life, my connection to source, to spirit, to God, where I see my daughters, the work that I'm doing, I'm so grateful that that happened because it had to be that explosion and it had to happen that way. Like you said, otherwise I wouldn't have seen it. And it just wouldn't have seen it.
Yeah, so it's actually interesting playing in the going into a relationship. You know, this
Mhm.
concept of your happiness comes from inside of you, right? Your happiness does not come from external sources. If you're always looking for your happiness to come from your accomplishment or from
Yep.
your interactions in your relationship or from whatever happens outside,
Mhm.
you're just going to be constantly up and down, right?
Right. That's
You're
right.
like the
It will
victim,
depend
the
upon the
cause.
day, right? If you got awarded for something, it's a good day. If you didn't, it's not. That's not a way to live.
Yeah, and I think when you're chasing happiness from external sources, and I didn't see this about myself
Yeah.
until, you know, recently, but when you're chasing happiness from external sources, you're taking in ways that aren't healthy for your relationships, right? So when you're
Yes, and it
focused.
also leaves you at a disempowered position.
Yes, that's very true. That's very
Mhm.
true. And so when
Mhm.
you're focused on how do I make myself happy? What do I need to be fulfilled? And you're creating and building that for yourself first, then you have the ability to give love and you have the ability to be in a relationship.
Yeah.
And is talking about going into a relationship, you know, is totally scary, right? There's a whole bunch of fears with even like saying, oh, I might date, you know,
Yeah.
or consider
Yeah.
going out on a date. And I have had this thought in my mind, which is I know what I want. I know what's important to me. It's a constantly refining process of getting to know myself and exploring
Yep.
myself,
Yep.
new venture and everything. And when I look at a relationship,
Yep.
you know, there's all of this. I see this kind of out in a lot of different ways, like a lot of mindset about what a person does for me and what I do for myself. And like, this person didn't do this, so I'm going to do this. It's like this domino interaction,
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
I look at that and I watch it and I'm like, no, that's not what I want.
Yep.
And we're like, I don't know. Everything's uncertain, right? Everything's uncertain. But what I
Yeah, the
do,
one thing that's certain is everything's uncertain.
yes, exactly,
That is, 'cause it is the
exactly.
truth, right? It is the truth. Mhm.
So I give my
Yep.
full self. I
Yeah.
give my full self. And that was like a huge leap to just say, like, I give my full self and open my full self to what I want in my life. And and I'll back up one more step when we're talking about when you're in the really tough feelings, like feeling like it's impossible that if you're looking at this conversation that you could feel this way and have all these beautiful things in your life,
Mhm.
at that moment. I would say one thing that also helped me a lot was the realization that you're not supposed to feel this bad. Like you're just not supposed to feel bad for a long time. You're supposed to feel
No,
good.
it's supposed to be temporal,
Yeah, and your
right?
your
Mhm.
life is supposed to be filled with amazing, exciting, wonderful, loving things. And when you might not feel it now, but that understanding, that belief, like I believe that, okay? And that acceptance of that belief to me gave me hope of like, okay, well, I'm supposed to pursue the things that make me feel better.
Yep,
So what is that? And in the beginning, it's very small things like, okay, I'm going to eat a really healthy dinner tonight because I'm not feeling great,
yep,
right?
yep.
Or I'm going to go for a walk. And then you start building on it and you get to the point where you're like, oh, I published a book, or
Yes. Yes, and let's also what I think is really important, Angie, is also to remember that sometimes through divorce, the divorce tends to give us the scaffolding or the belief systems of what's not possible, right? Or the scaffolding or the belief systems of where we've been stuck. And sometimes, just sometimes, that's the reason why coaching is here. We need a little course correction of saying, wait a minute, we need, like you said, we need to build a new system from the inside out. We know without a doubt, this is the formula, right? The formula is what is on the inside will absolutely project on the outside, right? The movie, the film that's playing on the inside, we have a soul and a spirit, which is our light. We have the film, which is in the middle, which is on the inside. And then we have the outside, which is the movie. And so we know without a shadow of a doubt that when we are aligned on the inside and we have eradicated the patterns, the limiting or the toxic thoughts and behaviors, or at least challenge them to say, which ones, like you said earlier, do I want to keep and which ones don't I want to keep? Once you learn the formula, it's a rinse, wash, repeat. But the formula just doesn't come magically out of the sky. Like, I just want to be really clear. Where Angie is today is because she dedicated herself, right? You went through the program 3 months. You went through 3.5 months, plus coming to the alumni calls for 2 years, right? Like, you have dedicated yourself and committed yourself to the internal work and you have learned the formula. Once you learn the formula, now you can master the formula. You could rinse, wash, repeat. You could edit the formula or you could add to it, right? But what I like to say is in the beginning, you don't need to change anything and don't change anything. Follow the formula exactly because we've got too many other variables that are going on and if we change the formula, it could really throw us off track, right? So you learn the formula, you master the formula, and then once you do that, now it's time to continue the journey, right? And so when Angie came to Divorcing Gracefully and Beyond 2 years ago, the first 12 weeks or the first 3.5 months are where the rapid transformation takes place. But then you have been consistently doing the work,
Mhm.
right? Like
Yeah.
you make so I just want everyone to know because like you make it look so easy and it is. It doesn't this work doesn't have to be hard. It's just different. And that's what I like to say to a lot of us women, right? And especially the women in DGB. The work itself isn't hard. What's challenging is getting rid of the patterns and the habits that have been so deeply embedded over time that no longer serves us, right? What's challenging is not allowing ourselves to soften and say, you know what, I'm not going to look at this today. Rather, we say, even though I don't want to look at this because this is uncomfortable for me, if I'm going to go across the bridge, I know I must look at this and I get to look at this. So I'm going to look at this and I'm going to feel the pain and I'm going to feel the temporal, whatever it may be, because I know this too shall pass. Once I move through this, I know then it's finished, it's done, and I can move on to my next thing.
Yeah, and it's not a destination, right? It's a
Correct. Yes.
continual
Yeah.
journey and you're continually going up and down. And so like I feel amazing today, right? I'm having an amazing day, but I also know that like there's going to be a moment where I'm going to have a totally
Yep.
bad day, right? I mean, and I
Yep.
know I know that's just part of the flow of that.
And it's the summits, right? It's the level. So when you came to DGB, your first role was to find peace in your heart right? Truly to find peace and to begin to learn how to step into the what I would say are dreams and goals, right? You have you've done, so let's just say there's phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. I'm just going to use this as an example, right?
Okay.
So phase 1, you reached your goals and then you had a chance to reevaluate those goals. Where am I now? What am I appreciating? What do I enjoy? What contrast do I have? What serves me? What doesn't serve me? It's a constant whittling, right? And refinement. And we get to do that. It's just a course correction for what we want more of and what we want less of, right? So we're going to be course correcting to the more and getting rid of and whittling the less that we need. And so now you're at a point where you're in your career, where you're expanding your career. I would love you to share that. Again, you wrote a book, you're in a relationship. So tell us about that part where where you were at this summit. Tell us like what's good about it. What are you looking back and where you were then to where you are now and where you want to be tomorrow? Like where is Miss Angie Bird right now?
Yeah, I have to tell you how I describe like the relationship or the interaction with you, what working with you is like, which is, I always say she's like your greatest supporter and encourager and coach, but she also calls you out on your BS, right? And
That's
and
right. Yeah.
and what's important about that, I think, that's really helpful is I at a certain point said I have to tell her what's actually really on my mind, my real thoughts, and share those with you, and then get real feedback about it, right? And it's kind of scary to open yourself up and say, "This is actually what I'm really thinking, not
Yeah.
what is
Not what I think you
convention of
want me to think or
conversation."
what I should be thinking. No, this is my real thought. Yes. Yeah.
Right, right. So I think it's important to get to that point. But yeah,
Yep.
so my vision. So I'm in this stage of reimagining, right? Because I've set these goals for myself. I actually started this bucket list in the kitchen. I took this huge butcher block of paper and I hung it on the wall. You know where
I
like they
love
write
it.
the menu of the day
Yes.
or something.
Yes. Yes.
And I started with
Serve it
that.
up. Let's order it. Yeah.
Yeah, and I the first version of that started with just a bucket list, right? And
Mhm.
it was like I told my kids, write any idea that you want on there of something you want to do, right? And my daughter went completely over the top. I mean, she wants to go on like an expedition across Antarctica and
Wow, I like it. I
she
like
has
the adventurous spirit.
yeah, she has
Yeah.
all of these things that she put on there. But the reimagining what you want your life to be. I think we
Yep.
put so many limits in ourselves. And I said, okay, I just went crazy one day and I said, I'm going to remove any limit.
Yep.
Right. So anything where my mind says that's not realistic, you can't
Yep.
have it, then I'm not going to do that anymore. So even if my mind says I want a unicorn and I want 50 unicorns in my backyard grazing through the grass, I'm going to write it down, right?
Yep.
And the reason why I say something kind of ridiculous like that is because there's so many things that we have where we limit our thinking about
Yep.
what we can have.
Yep.
And so when I removed that block,
Yep.
the first time I removed that block and I started writing all of these things, I mean, I just came up with all these ideas and I'm
Oh,
like, whoa, all of these things are possible for me, and I can choose what's interesting and what I want to focus on. And so I started looking at things like what things the story of the book came about. It was just an inspiration. I allowed myself to start writing, and
I
then
remember. I remember that inspiration coming up because we were working together at the time. And I had a friend. I said, I'm going to connect you with someone because she does book circles, right? Where she
Mhm.
does free writing. And why don't I just connect you? And look where you are.
I know. I said there was
Yeah.
an exercise. It was like, what did you used to do as a kid for fun, or what would you do for free? Like, what are those kinds of things in your life? And I realized that writing is one of those things for me.
Yep.
And so I've been writing a lot, and that led to Glitterbird. And that Glitterbird project has been one of the most fun projects I've ever done in my entire life, and the most meaningful projects to me. And it's all these little steps of just like it started from that place of saying, I like to write as a kid. I'm going to start
Oh,
writing
Angie, I
more.
love it. And you know what just came to my mind is I was watching something last night, but the show came on. It was something about a duality where here's her life, and if she went this way, this would be her life, and if she did this would be her life. So both her life story we're playing out from a different perspective, right?
Mhm.
And I believe karmically that there's no coincidence that our paths crossed, right? That for whatever reason, where you were, our paths crossed. You needed the spiritual food, you needed whatever you needed to fuel you, to raise your vibrational frequency, to get you to the point of getting out of the fight or flight brain, entering into the parasympathetic, right? The nervous system, which then led to your deeper connection with your children, which then led to me just happen to, know someone, who's writing a book, who happened to lead to a question, right, that really inspired you, and that happened to lead to the book. Like, again, there's no coincidences. And now you could have went the other way. You could have allowed the divorce to make, you could have made a meeting about that. You could have said no on that enrollment call when I invited you into the program. You could have said, it's just too much money, I'm not going to do it, I'm just too afraid, I can't do it. You could have let fear rule you out,
Mhm.
right? Could you imagine where your life would have been? How different it would have
I
been,
I know, and,
you
so
know?
I used to get stuck in the big question, like, what's the purpose of my life, right?
Mhm.
The massive question, and I actually had this like changed philosophy that I think has helped me a lot, which is, okay, so we're here
Yep.
today and we
Today.
have choices today, and they may be small choices, right? So what do you choose to do today? Well, if
Mhm.
you look at what's the purpose of my life, what am I supposed to be focusing on? It's like I could get stuck and never actually do anything, right? And
Yep.
so I heard this and I like it, which is, when you're at the end of your life and you can reflect back and see how all of these pieces fit together, then
Mhm.
you'll have a greater view of that vision. But what your role is today, you get to choose what feels lined up with
Yes.
that. And that comes in the form of inspiration, excitement,
Yeah, you know it.
connection.
You feel it. You
Yeah,
know.
and there are these
It
little
feels
steps,
good.
and so like today, just as an example, something that's happening today for Glitterbird later later today, I have a meeting at the local library about doing an event for
Fantastic.
Glitterbird, and so you never know, it's like the uncertainty of all these things, you never know when these things can lead to something that you're like, "Okay, maybe nothing will happen with that," or maybe I have a conversation with a woman that leads me into a transformational part
Yep.
of my life, like, I
You
mean,
never know.
you just
Like you
have to
said,
be
you
open
gotta be
to
open and
today.
and follow where your heart and soul goes, and what you did, right? And what you did, and you continue to do, because that's the unfolding, and that's where it's it's not just like 2 plus 2, it's the compound effect. 2 times 2 is 4, 4 times 4 is 16, right? So everything that we're doing in these small choices, like, and I love that you said that. If we think about, our purpose for our life, or a purpose for the next 20 years, that could be very overwhelming. But when you think about what are the choices that are here today, and I'd like to say, going back to where you were saying at the end of your life, when you're going through something, it looks like it's the perfect storm and it's a complete mess. But when you look back, you see it's a perfectly orchestrated symphony, right?
Yes, I love that
Truly, it's a
expression.
perfectly, and everything, the people you were meant to meet, you met, right? The connections. Now, I do believe that in our heart we have our dreams and our goals that only we can see, right? No one can see that, only us. And if we don't meet our dream and our goal, the universe will continually give us opportunities to meet it,
Mhm,
right? And so it's not like if you don't join Divorcing Gracefully and Beyond, you're not going to live your life. Like, that's not the case. The
mhm.
difference, though, is you probably shave off about 20 years of suffering, like, literally, right? That's the difference, is that you could get to your dreams and goals faster, right? And that's what I want to, at least for myself. I don't know how you feel, Angie, but for myself, I have come to this state of being and physiological being in my life now, that I have reverence for it. I know that it's not about me. I know it's not about me, but I know that when I'm operating at the biggest or the highest version of myself, then I'm going to connect with someone. And maybe that person's in a supermarket. Maybe that person is someone, a client. Maybe it's someone I meet at the beach. Who knows? But that conversation is going to impact that person. That's going to lead them to impact their family, right? Or impact their journey. And that one conversation could have a dramatic effect. It's like the butterfly effect, right? One flap of a butterfly's wing has the potential energetic frequency and momentum to create a hurricane on the other side of the world. And it's a fact. There actually is a book out there called The Butterfly Effect. If you haven't read it yet, it's
I
fabulous.
haven't read that
Oh,
one.
you got to read it. It's fabulous.
Okay.
So this goes to one small flap of a butterfly's wing could actually change the weather on the other side of the world. Could you imagine what one small action does? And so my sort of what I would say um, conversation to you would be is, and not you, Angie, I'm talking about the DGB sisters who are listening, don't wait to do the work, right? If you feel DGB is your place, get on a breakthrough to life and love call with me and let's have a conversation. If you don't feel DGB is your place, and that's okay too, but find a coach who fits with you. Like, don't wait to do the work, because what happens is we do leave before you know it. It's days that go by, and then months that go by, and then decades that go by. That's how fast time moves, right? Think about it. I mean, think about how much you've accomplished in 2 years.
I know, it's
I
so
mean,
exciting.
I
It's so
mean,
exciting. I
and
feel
it's like not only just the 2 years, but the first 3.5 months or the first 6 months, you've accomplished so much, right? And then now it's just been compounding, which do you wanna share what's going on at work? Like, you're putting out there, like, y
uh, not yet.
yeah, so you're
But
putting out there what you want out of work.
goals, yes, I'm
Right? You're
setting
putting out there
very
what you want out of relationships. You're putting out there
yes.
what I want out of my future, how I wanna be expanding that. But basically what you're doing is you're in the creative mode, you're in the receiving mode, and it's gonna come.
Yes, yes,
Right? And now you
definitely.
get to enjoy it now. During this time, you're not wasting 10, 20 years trying. Zig Ziglar had something that I love what he said. He says, people are always fixing to get ready. We're always getting ready to get ready. Right? I'll do
That's
it
true.
when, right? Like, I'm gonna get ready to do it. I'm gonna do it when the kids go to school. I'm gonna do it in the fall. I'll do it in the spring. I'll do it after Christmas. I'll do it after the summer. I'm gonna do it after this trip. I'm gonna do it next week. I'm gonna do it in 12 weeks. I'm gonna do it in 3 months. I mean, who knows? And there truly, again, there isn't any right or wrong about that. But the difference is what you've just done is inserted time, right? And so it's taking you longer to be living the life that's in your heart. And the longer we resist our soul's calling is the longer we stay in suffering.
I equate the coaching and the program and what you call the work and all of that. So if you look
Yep.
at these, I have these building blocks for if I start feeling not very good, right?
Yep.
I'm not feeling good, something's going on.
Right. And you could just
I
feel
find
it.
myself in a negative zone,
Yep.
whatever it is. I look at some of the building blocks of what's going on, right? And building blocks for me are how's my sleep been? How's my
Yep.
nutrition been? How's my movement been? Those kind of core things of life. Well, the way that I view the coaching is that kind of core philosophy, right? Because it's your mental chatter and your mental
Yep.
state, and being able to come out of those more quickly and reshift your zone and get back into that mode of following your inspiration. So like if you have an idea today that you should call
Yep.
so and so, right? I mean, when
Yep.
you are feeling really good, those moments of inspiration are more clear and more exciting, and they're easier and faster to follow.
Yes,
And
you will take
so,
action.
yes. And
Yep.
so when you can come in and like, oh, Donna reset me today. That's like what it feels like.
Yes. The reset.
That's how actually I feel like after
Yep.
we talk or we have a call or something like that. I have this new energy. That's why I went to Cabo,
Yep.
because I feel inspired and reset and driven on a new level of energy that I approach my life.
Yep.
And so all of those goals of what I want to be. So yeah, I've started dreaming about the next level. Like, what do I really want my workday to do? What do I
Yep.
want my workday to involve? What kind of projects do I want to do? And I even started So, like, if you look at your vision, I have ideas that go way, way, way out, right? But then I also look at today, like, what would
Yep.
make my work more meaningful today and incorporate those things that I want. And I start incorporating them. And then before you know it, you have like new projects at
That's
work.
right. They show up. They
Yes,
just
exactly.
literally show up. Yep.
Yes. So that's been really
I
fun.
love it. I love it. And I can't wait to see where you're going. I really can't, Angie. And thank you so much for having this conversation with us today because one of going back to the main reason I wanted Angie to come back on the show is her shining example of what a DGB sister is, right? Her commitment to herself, that first day coming into DGB, not really sure, but you followed your soul in spite of the feeling, you knew your fact was, okay, if I don't do something different, then I'm going to create the same things I've been creating. And that's not an option for me. So I'm going to
Yes,
learn
very
something
true.
different,
It's a
right?
leap. All these
It's a leap.
things are a
It's a
leap.
leap.
You're
And
like,
it
I'm
is,
gonna
it's a leap. And going back to what you say, you have Angie's, what was it called?
Angie's Anthem.
Angie's Anthem. So I'm thinking about like our foundational four, right? Where we have our home, we have our spirit, we have our energy, our mindset, our frequency, right? And then we have our visions and our goals. And
Okay.
that's when we look at all of these, that's our responsibility to nurture, to manage, and then what I also would say, Angie, is allowing the super conscious to come in, our connection to God, to spirit, to source, right?
Yes.
Allowing that to come in to further ignite because we have an idea of what's possible for us, like truly, but there's so much more. Just like if you ever saw a small child, you have an idea, right? You know what's possible for them. There's so much that's possible, but in that moment, they don't know they could ride the bike. Right? They're looking at it. But we know not only are they going to ride a bike, they're going to drive a car, they're going to have a mansion, they're going to have a home, they're going to have a job, they're going to get married, they're going to have kids, right? Like we know their future because we could see it. They can't. It's the same thing with us. We are operating at a point we only know what we know. Right? And that's another reason to sort of to immerse yourself with like minds, to immerse yourself in a community or around people who think like you think or even greater or bigger. If you're the smartest one in the room, you need a new room,
Mhm.
right? It's because that's how we learn.
Yeah, the spiritual part of the journey, I think, is so important to talk about
Yep.
because before I started this process, I would say I was very spiritually disconnected or I didn't really know what I believed spiritually.
Yep.
And for me, what started happening was I started having these, what I called coincidences. And these
Yep.
coincidences just became unbelievable. I mean, they were like, I mean, they were
They
very,
no longer could be coincidences,
right.
right? They were they were
They're no
they were they were that they were there so much, right? There was no
Yes,
longer a
it was very
coincidence.
overt and like,
Yes.
"You
Yes.
cannot miss this,
You could
Angie,"
not miss it.
and
Yes.
so it
Yep.
changed it's completely opened me and took me on this spiritual journey, and the spiritual journey, I would say, if you're listening to this and you're not really sure about that or what you think about it, what I would say is listen to what inspires you,
Yep.
like these ideas that you have. And when you have ideas in your head where it's like you have an inspiration or something that makes you feel good, peace, joy, something like that, and then you have a voice that tells you like, no, that's not possible, or all these things
Mhm.
about it, your inspiration is there from a greater purpose, and when
Yep.
you follow those, there is a higher power out there that is guiding and leading
Yes.
you through life
And
in a
supporting.
place, and you're not alone,
Yep.
and is taking you places where you can't see, and you can't see that picture right now,
Yes.
but that
Yes.
is very
Yep.
important part of it.
I agree. I agree because that first initial conversation where you have the inspiration, you have the ignition, right? You're activated. That is your spirit and soul. It's not about religion, right? It's about
Mhm,
the spirituality connection. That's your true spirit and soul. That is, I say God, you can say universe, source, whatever you want to say, right?
mhm,
It's calling you.
mhm.
That's what we need to listen to, because that other voice that comes in and says, "Oh, you can't do it. Oh my gosh, that's, it's too much. You're too tall, too short, too old, too young, too little money, too much money. That can happen. That can't happen." That voice is the ego voice. That voice has been conditioned by society, by false beliefs, patterns, and behaviors that doesn't, like, most of it doesn't serve us, right? We need a reboot. And if we follow that voice, what ends up happening is, the only way I'm thinking about it, I don't know why this is coming to my mind, but it's like trying to walk through life with, like, I have a size 7.5 shoe, but trying to wear a 4 sneaker, right? Like, it hurts.
I had this visual in my mind of like this little ninja that's the fear slayer, right? And it's
Yep.
like, I will take you
Yes.
on.
I got you. That's it. Like, come on. I got you. Yeah. So, so much of what Angie said, is so powerful. It's so impactful. So I hope this conversation really helped you to see that divorce is not a life sentence. Divorce is not even an identity. It's a temporal moment of our life that we're moving through, and we have a choice. We could choose to move through it through pain and suffering, choose to move through it as Angie said, I have no choice. Or we could choose to move through it as, this is it. My foot is down. There's no other way I'm going to move through my life other than one of abundance and joy. And I'm going to learn how to do that. It really is perspective. It's the way we decide to see it.
Yeah, put your foot down,
That's it.
get your little fear
Yep.
slayer ninja out,
That's it.
and build a life that you
Yes.
love.
And you could do it.
And it's
See,
your choice. It's your
yes, and
choice.
it's your choice. Now, I'm just gonna share this because I think I've shared this with you before, Angie, and I'm just gonna share this with other people. But even though I see myself as a I am, a confident, strong woman in the work that I do, in the life that I live, this wasn't always the way. Like, I've built this up over time. But even then, I still had beliefs and patterns in the past that made me believe that I really couldn't do it on my own, right? That I really needed someone, a spouse, to be there. And in the past, I actually tolerated really poor behavior from my partners, in the past, because I felt like I felt safer having some with me than without me. But again, that was a feeling, it wasn't a fact. And what I realized is when I really looked at what the fact was, is that the life that we were living, the life that was created, was as a result of everything that I had been doing, in a sense. Does that make sense?
For sure,
Right?
definitely. Yeah.
So what I'm saying is, even if you think like, oh my gosh, like I got it at work, I know what I'm doing at work, but on my personal side, I've never been by myself, or this is totally new to me, or I don't even know how to do it. Just, you're not alone, right? And I think the decision comes when you say, but today's the day I do. Today's the day I'm learning. Today's the day I'm on my way. Because it's learning, and you have a choice. Do I keep feeding the patterns, the beliefs, the behaviors of the past, or do I get to create and activate the soul of the future? I know what side I'm on.
Yeah, and you say something that I love and I remind myself all the time, which is I can set a vision for what I want, and
Yep,
I have no idea how I'm gonna get there,
that's
right?
right.
And that's okay. Like,
Yep,
you set the vision of what you want, when I set a vision for a really audacious goal, let's say, and I say, I don't think I could achieve that, right? That's not the mindset. Like, it's
yep,
like, okay, well, I set this wild, crazy goal. And how could I achieve that? Like,
yep,
what would have to happen for that to work? And maybe my inspiration today is that I'm going to ask Donna a question about it, or
yep,
I'm going to call this person because I know they do X, or
yep.
whatever it is. You don't have to know the how, you just follow that inspiration in those small daily moments. And then before you know it, you get to this point where we're like, whoa, 2 years, I did, whoa.
Right, you look back, like you said, wow, and you're right. We figure out the what and allow the how to figure itself out, because what we know to be true now again, sometimes it's hard to believe, because unless you've been through it and you understand it, it is hard to understand and believe. But once you make once you make decisive action based on a soul prompting, Not an ego prompting, right?
Right.
It's a soul prompting where you feel it in your heart.
Mhm.
Once you make that decision, even though the outside environment looks like, "Why are you doing that decision?" Or, my gosh, it doesn't look possible," or, "It can't be." We're not moved by outside in circumstances, right? We're moved by inside. And so once we make that move, what we know to be true now is the universe is going to come to support us. And it's going to put in our path the people, the places, the things, the conversations we need to have to get us to the next level. It's almost like it's, if you take a step, the and again, it's that decisive, that soul prompting. When you take that step, the next step appears.
Mhm.
And then you take that step and the next step appears. So now, once you have safety and understanding that when I follow the soul prompting, I know I'm going to be supported. It gives us the permission, and again, it gives us the flexibility to say, okay, I'm going to do that more, because we no longer are afraid of, oh my God, what happens if I take this step? What, because we try to be the general contractor of the universe. We try to figure out
Yeah.
all of the pieces. If I do this, then I'll do this, and then if I do this, then this person's going to do that, and then this will happen, and that will happen, and then before you know it, you don't do anything.
It's funny, you said a word earlier, and it just falls in line with all of this, and it's actually what I the last thing I wrote on my kitchen
Yep.
butcher block paper, which was, to live in the unfolding.
Oh,
Um
yes.
Because I've always tried to control and plan and organize my life, and it should go in these certain ways. And when you do that, you cannot build as beautiful of a life as is made for
Yes.
you.
Yes.
And so living in that unfolding of the
Living in the unfolding and trusting and honoring the unfolding, even when something unfolds that you think may not be for you, allowing it to happen. I love it. I love it.
Mhm.
Angie, thank you so much for today. We could probably talk for
Oh,
3 hours.
I'm sure we
We
could.
could talk, but thank you for today. I can't wait to hear where you're going. I Keep us posted and keep us in the loop of where you are, where you're at. Again, a wonderful, wonderful conversation. Sending you love, and
Thank
for all of us,
you.
all of the DGB sisters, we'll see you later. Have a great rest of the day, and we'll see you on the other side.
All right, bye-bye.
Bye. And Angie's book is going to be in the, I'll try to put in the main part of the post, but if not, it will be in the comments, so you could pick up Glitterbird. All right. See you later. Bye.